just can't remember who to send it to. I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again.
James Taylor, Fire and Rain. Love that song. No question about it. Always have, always will. And, of course, always makes me think of people I love and all that good stuff. Hope everyone out there's doing well. It's Dan RadioStyle, and I am here to share the 12 universal laws. These are actually very, very cool, and law of attraction happens to be one of them. Now, I've seen a variant of this of 7 laws, and that basically is just a smaller component of these same 12. The 12, the extra 5, I thought were actually good. Two caveats before I get into this, and I'm going to try to go through them reasonably quick. Again, it's just going to be a quick overview of kind of how these play together, and it's kind of why law of attraction is part of this. So I'm trying to put it in a slightly bigger context because manifestation doesn't just happen from law of attraction. So after we kind of discuss through some of them kind of talk about how the framework works, how the mechanisms kind of work, and then some of them actually kind of get into specifics that actually matter and I think need to be done with the law of attraction. So that's where I'm going with this from the get-go. Like I said, I'm going to try not to belabor these points. All this stuff can be looked up, 12 universal laws. You'll find them yourself. And 2 caveats. This, I believe, specifically deals with third dimension, third density, third dimensional living in the space-time continuum that we all find ourselves living in currently. When you get outside of this dimension, people have asked me to do shows about 6th dimension and stuff. I probably will. I'll get into that stuff down the road. Just kind of using this caveat for those that maybe know a little bit about this stuff. When you get outside of the 6th dimension, these rules don't truly apply anymore. Some of them do, but not all of them. So again, that is one caveat. And then the other, one of them in particular, actually has to do with a level of spiritual evolution within this lifetime. And when that's attained, I believe that one comes into play a lot more than it does prior to that, at least the way it's stated. And I'll give a quick little synopsis on it when we get to that one. So it does apply to everybody, but kind of in a different way. But as a step to mastery or a step towards being a teacher or whatever, there's another aspect of it that is very cool. And so it's a whole extra level that is lumped in there. And once you go through that, it's like almost a rite of initiation, frankly. But we'll get into it. All right, 12 universal laws. First one, law of oneness. This is a good one to know just in general. That's why a lot of people refer to this stuff, we're all one and all that. But it's not just that. It's the fact that we're all interconnected. We're all connected. I've talked about how our higher selves talk to each other. Again, these are some of the mechanisms on how this stuff works. We are all connected. Every single one of us knows each other on the other side. When we pass away and go to heaven or whatever, we know each other. We know each other well. We've done this lots of times. Now, I'm not going to get off too crazy stray a path because a lot of people have a hard time with that. So again, we're all just connected. That's the important thing. It was made that way and it's supposed to be that way. So it's a very beautiful thing. The law of vibration. This one is actually just kind of more in the sense of really pointing out that everything is in motion. Everything is moving. It's vibrating. Everything is vibrating. Everything's just frequencies, energy. That's why how you're vibrating yourself, how you feel matters more than anything because it has to do with vibrations. And vibrations and frequencies, which are vibrations essentially, are what we use to attract things to us or repel things from us. When you ever just been in someone's presence that was like, God, they were horrible, they're exhausting to be around, or whatever the case is, it's that energy they give off, and you feel it when you're right up to them. You're just like, this doesn't feel good already, or someone feels evil, or whatever the case. There's different forms of how that all works. So again, the big thing with vibration is everything is in motion. Everything is moving. Everything is about frequency, harmonies, and vibrations, all right? So that's everything is. Everything. 100% of all things are vibrating. Solid matter is just vibrating slowly enough to where it appears to be solid, but in all reality, 99% of everything, as far as an atomic structure is concerned, is empty space. And then when you get down into the quarks and all the nuons or whatever, all the muons, whatever they are, all the little itty-bitty pieces of them, those are all just energy, frankly. That's all we can figure out at this point as far as the smallest microscopes. It's just energy. That's all it is. All right, action. This is the important. It's the doing aspect. Every one of us has to do some form of action. That is part of how these things occur in life. That's part of how life works. It's part of how interacting with life works. When it comes to manifesting the actions, the imaginal work maybe, or the rubbing out, or the thinking positive thoughts, or trying to do like living in the end, right? Or making room in the closet. That's a doing kind of thing. So again, all those action things, action has to happen. This is a universe of action. Everything is in motion. Everything is in action. So passivity is not really kosher. Being passive is not really, you certainly don't want to pick the fruit before it's ripe. I keep hearing that one thrown out all the time. That's something that, do it if you want, but at the same time, you wait too long and the fruit ripens on the tree, you've got a problem. So for all of you that are like not wanting to do things because you don't want to pick the fruit before it's ripe, understand that if you wait too long, there's a problem there too, right? If it falls to the ground, that's already a problem. And once it hits the ground, bugs and critters start to get to it. A lot of things start to happen. But once things start to rot that far, a whole biological process kicks in and you start to lose aspects also. So, and that's just for, I don't like that phrase all that much, but whatever. That's just for all of you. I keep hearing people say it. So whatever. You guys can figure out how to deal with that because I don't teach that. That's not my thing. That's not my mojo. And I don't like it per se. I just think it's a weird way to look at it. But again, action. We all have our little parts to do. Law of correspondence. This basically means there is a plane. They call it the etheric plane, right? But there's this separate plane that's basically where our higher self's chilling. That's the easiest way to look at it from the standpoint of all the stuff we talk about. And it's hanging out in this place that's the etheric plane. So the same rules that we live by here that govern our thoughts, our words, our deeds, all that kind of stuff also exists in the etheric plane as well. So the same rules apply, and that's where that whole as above, so below kind of concept comes from. It just means there's a place that's essentially parallel, but a slightly different energy base, slightly different physicality structure, just different. It's almost like a different reality for sure, different dimension kind of. Yeah, I think all that's partially true as well. Like I'm like all you guys. I live in the third dimensional world, and there's been experiences I've had, and I've done a lot of studies. So maybe my understanding to a concept is great in what another dimension is, but remembering it or whatever, other than dreams, I got nothing. I'm just like you guys. My experience is 3D. But again, as above, so below. That's just correspondence. Cause and effect. This one's key, and this one's also, I think, one that's very, very important to remember is we are the cause of what's happening. There's an effect that occurs from every one of our causes. My last show, I was talking about the ripples, and the ripples go out and they can reflect off walls and come back to you. They can actually hit another ripple and absorb. They can hit another ripple and actually reflect back as well. They can hit another ripple and kind of just pass through each other. It just depends on the harmonics, the frequencies, and all these things. So cause and effect, everything that we do, say, or think has an effect. And so what we're putting out there is definitely coming back. There's either going to be a reaction or a consequence. And that's just kind of how it works. That's just it. Cause and effect. It's a law. One of the 12. All right, compensation. This one's kind of cool. And this is for a lot of you guys that are like, well, you shouldn't have to necessarily do things for free that universe just because it's spiritual or whatever. The universe will pay. This is kind of one of the things I generally live by is I am taken care of by the universe. Universe is the one that's basically writing me checks. I don't necessarily worry about trying to micromanage money out of people per se. I make avenues open like everybody else. Like I got the PayPal link and all that different stuff, right? Like I make it obvious, but I don't really push it. You know what I mean? And the reasoning for it is I know universe will find the right people. If there's someone that's going to use that link, for example, they'll be like scrolling down. They'll be like, he's got to PayPal me. No way. And click on it and donate $5 or whatever the heck. And I'll be like, wow, no way. Someone did that. That's awesome. So again, it's just those kinds of things happen. The universe really is where I look to get my money. So be it maybe the profession that's opening up, which there's something kind of cool working in my life right now in that regard, but we'll get into that down the road. But just how things happen, how things get compensated to me, how universe pays me, how it provides me money-making opportunities or ways to trade stuff or whatever. So again, just so all you know, it's how we get that's how we get compensated. You don't have to necessarily worry about it. What you're putting out there and doing in the big picture for the universe does actually reciprocate back to you. You just don't necessarily see it like like universe is putting its hand out and handing you a $20 bill. Instead, you might find money on the road, or someone might say, hey, can you help me with this thing that you do really well, and then pay you really well to do it. Or, a lot of these things are because we've done good deeds. Good deeds, I cannot state far enough, or more, that I can't state too much. Good deeds definitely get rewarded by universe. It is just for sure. I've seen it too many times. I know they say good people finish last and all that stuff. Doesn't matter. I got taken care of. Like, all is good. You know what I mean? So maybe everyone finished before me and they got the little shiny trophy. I got what I wanted. I got what I needed from the deal. So again, it's good stuff how it works out. Law of attraction. Well, we've talked about this one maybe a few thousand times, but our thoughts, words, deeds create vibrations within ourselves. Those vibrations are what attract to us. That's basically what law of attraction states. I know we go all over the place and lump things into law of attraction or LOA. That's really what law of attraction is speaking to, is our vibrations attract what we experience. That's it, really. And what you think, what you say, what you do are what create those vibrations. So there you go. We were talking about how everything is vibration. Law of perpetual transmutation of energy. Fancy schmancy title, but what it basically comes down to is all of us have the ability to heal ourselves. If there is some sort of issue within ourselves, it's generally related to a low energy or a low frequency problem, be it hate, be it things that come from dislike, anger, frustration. All those kinds of things are low energy, low vibration, low harmonics, not healthy, and will cause dis-ease in our body, and thusly will sometimes manifest as a disease. So these things can be healed very easily. The way you do it is you transmute the energy that caused them. So if you're having energy situations that are negative, if you're having problems where you're thinking horrible thoughts or being angry all the time, these things are actually bad for the body. The way you redo that is you switch them into a higher vibrational state. So if that requires forgiving whoever you're angry with, if it requires just figuring out a way to love whoever you're angry with, whatever it is that bothers you in life that keeps happening, if you can find a way to overlook that and not see it as a problem anymore, change your belief about it so it doesn't bother you anymore. Like, I don't know what the issue is for you or me or whatever, right? But if you can find a way to come up with a slightly higher energy dynamic, that will always overpower the lower energy dynamic. Always. Always, always, always. That's what this law is speaking to. If you have a low vibration thing happening in your life, the way to resolve it is to increase your vibration about that thing. So if you have negative thoughts about that thing, then have positive thoughts somehow. However you can trick yourself into doing it, however you can change your opinion about that thing so you can start feeling better about it, whatever you got to do, it's up to you. It's your life, your thing, your vibe, your deal. That is how you heal that problem. And if you've got some sort of dis-ease in your body, the same concept can be said. Whatever it was that was causing that, and generally speaking, there's the parts of the bodies have certain chakras that are related, certain areas that if you're feeling this way about stuff, sometimes it'll manifest in your heart. Sometimes things will manifest as a leg issue. Again, we could get into all of that, and that'd be a crazy show to even try to do. But there are different aspects of the body that have different harmonics attached to it and all this stuff. So anyway, getting way off track on that one. Perpetual transmutation of energy. Everyone can heal that. Here's one of the key ones that, in my opinion, this is that one where the great leap can occur. So I'll get into it. Relativity. Basically what it means is life is going to present us with tests, or what some say nights of initiation, dark nights of the soul. For sure is a little further. The hero's story. All these things are used frequently to describe this aspect of life. Now, many of us from the not initiated per se, the just kind of living life and going through life, if you don't know where you fall into, I don't know. Doesn't matter. These are just stupid titles. But when you're looking at life and you're going to get tested sometimes. So a lot of us going through this law of attraction thing. It's why the sign thing sometimes seems to stop working. This rule will kick in at some point where it's like you already know that, your higher self knows this, and it needs you to graduate from this level of thinking. So it will provide us an opportunity to be challenged, to be tested. And what we do through that challenge, we're either A, going to repeat the cycle again, okay, and this will come up in a second, or we graduate and we go into a bigger circle, if you will, a higher understanding. And that's kind of how it works in my mind and the way I see it, and I think it works representationally rather well. So cycles in life happen because there's something we need to figure out and do differently. We keep cycling to it, and whatever we're doing, it's not working, so we're coming back to it. When you finally do what's going to work, that cycle stops. When it does, it expands. That is going to seem different depending on whatever it is, but essentially the expansion is always a good thing. So if you stop having a pattern happen because you finally did something different, that's huge, and you will see it because it will go away. Whatever it was will go away, and that means you passed your test. Now, from the higher initiation standpoint, there's what's called the Great Leap. It's when you go from the third to the fourth chakra. Sorry, I'm getting off on crazy stuff for those of you that are interested. Hopefully it matters. Hopefully you guys are like, ooh, this is cool. But from the third to the fourth chakra, they call the Great Leap. The third chakra is your gut feeling. That's where you have those feelings like gut levels, like, ooh, I just don't know if I trust this guy, or ooh, something bad's going to happen. Ooh, I feel it, right? The heart chakra is when you do things based off feeling. You have no physical evidence, typically, is how this usually plays out. So you'll have no physical evidence whatsoever, but you will feel that you need to do this no matter what. And so you end up doing it. And then you find out why. Once you finally, like, you go down that path, you open that door, and you're like, oh my God, how awesome was that? I just knew I had to do this. That is the Great Leap, because you do something because of how it feels, not because of any sort of proof that so many of us love. How do I know for sure? How do I, like, all those questions in my mind are not coming from this place. You're not working from the heart chakra, and that's totally okay. When you get to that point, that's great and wonderful. But when you get to the heart chakra, you start to really perceive life from a very different perspective. Very different perspective. Feelings suddenly have a great deal of power versus not having feelings, versus having fact. And that really starts to become a very huge distinguishing point of contention between those two paths. So again, you're going to have your chances to do things differently either way, but how you approach them is going to vary depending on what side of this aspect that you're coming from. All right. 3D world, this one's specific. This is one of the caveat ones for sure. Polarity. Everything in this 3D world has a polar opposite, has an opposite. So a lot of people have constantly wondered, like, how can I make something better in my life? I keep having these negative thoughts, for example. How do I fix that? Well, there's a polarity to that thought. There's an opposite to whatever that thought was. So say that. Say the opposite. So, of course, hot and cold, left and right, up and down, front and back. Everything's got an opposite, except for center. No, there's a few things that don't, mind you, like crazy words like center. But center actually implies left and right. But that's actually kind of my point, too. Outside of this dimension, it just becomes, it is what it is. So there is no left or right. There's just, it's there, right? Like that, it's kind of different. There's no, it's good or bad. It is all of those things. It is a combination. There's one more law that'll kind of make a little more sense to this aspect specifically, but it's all of those things. It's not good or bad. It's like I'm choosing to focus on an aspect of it and then define it as up or down, left or right, good or bad. When in reality, it's all these things. It's a big compilation of stuff. And I'm just simplifying it to good or bad, or up or down, or ooh, it's hot, or it's not hot. You know, in the science terms, just to use hot for an example, there's no such thing as cold in physics. Truly, no such thing as cold. All there is absence of heat. So again, kind of a similar concept. It's how you look at things versus what it actually is. All right, rhythm. We're almost done, by the way. This is the 11th one, the law of rhythm. Everything's got cycles, and that's kind of really the big key takeaway from this one. I think astrology falls into this, by the way, because that's the heavenly bodies, and I do think there's effects from those. Like for me, I'm Gemini, Mercury retrograde. I feel it. There's definitely, it affects me. I can see it. I can see it versus when I'm not in it. I couldn't necessarily tell you, like, oh, Mercury retrograde. I can just feel it right now. But when I keep having like odd experiences and then I'm like, what the hell? And then someone's like, dude, Mercury's retrograde. I'll be like, okay, that makes sense. Because normally it's not like this. Right now, Mercury is retrograde and it's odd for me. It's a little bit of a challenge or whatever. So it manifests its way in a few different ways. But again, cyclical. Life's cycles. That's what I was talking about earlier, right? If you keep repeating something, do it differently, and you'll probably find that you're not doing that cycle again anymore. But we've got larger cycles. Our heavenly bodies travel in cycles. Our solar system, our galaxy, our everything is traveling in cycles. And the Mayans it was a big thing for those of you in the 2012 and all that stuff, right? The Mayans were talking about it with their calendar, different cycles, and we supposedly finished up a grand cycle on top of a bunch of little cycles, right? Smaller cycles. So that was what was so significant about 2012 is we started a new year, essentially, in the Mayan calendar. A lot of people thought that was going to be the end of the world. That was silly. No, we just ended a year. It's like every year we go to December 31st, and then we have New Year's Eve. I don't think the world's going to end. I'm pretty sure we're just going to go to January 1st. That's usually how it happens. Pretty solid. You can count on that. It's like clockwork. Anywho, all right, so that's how that one kind of works. Rhythms, just cycles. Good stuff. Good point here that I wrote in here. Masters tend to rise above this one. The rhythms, how you can get up and down, how you can get a little like crazy, like the really good things and the really bad things, right? The cycles, right? Generally, masters kind of look at it and they just don't get too terribly excited when the really good things happen, and they don't get too terribly upset when the really bad things happen because they just realize it's cycles. And so they just kind of take it as what it is. It is what it is. It's cool. And I don't get all that worked up about the good and the bad and everything in between. So again, it just helps. It helps kind of keep you a little more on the stable side versus constantly up and down. These roller coasters are out of control. All right, the last one and super important one. Man, this is a long show. Sorry. Law of gender. This one's really kind of important. I won't spend too much time on it, but what it talks about is everything has a masculine, a yang, and a feminine aspect to it, a yin. So masculine yang, feminine yin. Everything is a mixture of those two. Men and women have, I've got feminine components for sure and masculine components as well. You ladies have feminine components and masculine components. You gentlemen also have the same as me, right? Dogs are the same way. Dogs will have female components, male components. Words will have male components, female components. Just life in general. Everything, no matter what it is. It's just the aspect of all energy, of all things. They have that aspect of it that's very yang, which is very doing, very energy, very focused, and the yin is generally a little more receiving, a little more subdued, a little more quiet. I don't know why they attach that to female versus male. I don't know. Men, because they're the hunters, gatherers. I don't know. Whatever the case is. That's just how we speak of it. But that all being said, there is a component to all of that in everything we do and everything we are. And it's very important for us to balance those to the best of our ability. You don't want to be overly one of any of those because that generally causes imbalances on the other side, which can make, for a guy that's overly masculine, he's not very sensitive. It's hard for him to understand emotions. It's hard for him to really, truly get in touch with feeling. And it can be very challenging. And so that can be frustrating if you're a girl and you're dating a dude that's just not capable of feeling his emotions. Well, it's probably because he's very imbalanced when it comes to the masculine and feminine aspects of himself. So again, and sometimes guys can be overly effeminate, which is also kind of weird. And then you're like, as a woman, you can sometimes feel like, God, I wish he was just a little more masculine, or God forbid he ever had to defend me. He might just scratch his eye, though. You scratchy Scratcherton, right? Like, that's not who you necessarily want either, right? Maybe you do. If you do, there's perfect balances. There's women that are a little heavy on the masculine side and they work out with an effeminate dude. And I think this works in the like the homosexual community very well. Typically, there's usually one that's a bit more of the one side than the other, right? It doesn't matter that you're both the same sex. It doesn't really matter. One of you is probably a little more masculine and one of you is probably a little more feminine, or you could be very balanced. But whatever the case is, this is just generally how things work in nature. So again, it's a very important law that the law of gender in all things, the yang and the yin, definitely affects things. Hopefully this helps kind of put a little bit of a broader perspective around this whole law of attraction thing and kind of how all these things work, because I truly believe that all 12 of these things really do come into play when it comes to trying to navigate life, live life, and certainly get things that you want. All of these things come into play. Again, it's a universe that has energy going on with it, and we're always moving and always fluxing and always changing. That's okay when we're up and down and left and right? But you're trying to get a little more to the stableness of it, and from that point, it starts to get a little easier. You get less drama, you get less mind chatter, you get, just things start to make a little more sense. Hopefully that helps. I don't know. We'll see how it is. Going out with a great song by Phil Collins. This song is called Take Me Down. Of course, you're hearing that right here on Dan RadioStyle as I stall looking for my remote. There we go.
The door, turn the light on and run. I should know better than to rest on a promise. This body before you has seen too much pain. Take me down to the water.